Namaste and good evening, everyone. We have gathered here, and I guess some of us gather to beat solitude or being alone. This Thursday evening is an opportunity for us to be with each other, if not face to face, in this fashion online. Online, even that is good. We get to talk to people, we get to hear from people. We have an opportunity to agree with some, disagree with some, and time passes in a meaningful way. This topic of solitude is a mind boggling one. Solitude is generally used in a complimentary sense. Loneliness is used in an uncomplimentary sense. Nobody wants loneliness, and a lot of people appreciate the opportunity to have some solitude. Though there are some very extroverted people in this world, they are averse to solitude also. They don't want to be alone at all. They always want to be with people, go out or have people visit them, and so on. Let's leave them aside. A whole lot of thinking people value solitude. Solitude is seen to be something that refreshes us, something that gives to us the space to inquire, to introspect, to take stock of life's situation. And therefore, once in a while, all of us want solitude. We say to our friends, our family members, can we be by ourselves for some time? Let's take a break. I want to have some space of my own, and so on. In the religious traditions of the world, not only in the traditions of India, Buddhist, Jain, Hindu, and so on, but even in Christian, Jewish, Islamic, and so on, people who apparently advanced, went to great heights in the so called spirituality, had gone for solitude for certain lengths of time, sitting all alone by a river bank or living in a cave all by themselves or on a hill in so many ways. Sometimes in the life of certain spiritual luminaries, they even vanished from their town. It is said Jesus Christ disappeared from his native place or the surroundings. And as many of you know, there is a theory, not much accepted everywhere, but all the same, there is a theory that those 12 years when they did not know where he had disappeared, he had spent those 12 years in India, probably in Kashmir. That theory is most welcomed by Indians. They were proud. Oh, really? He came to our country. Yes, he got some wonderful spiritual learning from some Hindu master, probably, and so on. He must have met some rishis or munis. But most of the Western world, especially Orthodox Christians, simply dismiss that theory. Our Jesus had no need to go to India. Indians have to come to us. That's it. Anyway, let's not get into the pride and prejudice of members of various religions where something of their own religion, even if it is superstitious, looks glorious to them, and something of another religion, even if it's a little, you know, towards questionable, uh, they hastily label it as superstitious. This goes on. Let's keep away from that. the fight between religions. We want to inquire into life rather than into any particular organized or disorganized religion. But I was saying that when we examine the life of certain very advanced spiritual personalities, they did go for certain periods of solitude. Therefore, solitude is known to be a favorable and desirable way of living in spiritual context generally. But for one person who goes to solitude and receives a whole lot of blessings, gets benefited, comes back truly, if not enlightened, comes back with a great amount of certain transformation. Others notice, wow, this lady has changed. Oh, this man who went from our town and we were wondering where he went to some jungle, to some cave, to the Himalayas. Looks like he has been transformed, people say. So we know these cases, but I'm saying now for one case of people who get benefited from the so called solitude, alas, there are 100 who actually get the opposite. They actually come back or they are not changed at all. They actually suffer from what they had imagined to be beneficial. So, therefore, the topic that we are dwelling upon in this session has the second part, the bright and the dark sides. Solitude indeed has a bright side, it has certain dark side also. But we must hasten to add that it is bright for some people and not for the same people, but for some other people, solitude could be dark. It can help some, but can be harmful to others. So, first, it looks like a bit complex topic. It is complex because the whole matter has to be considered in the psychological space, not so much in the physical space. Solitude is to be looked at in terms of what it can do to the psychology of a human being. Traditional spiritual philosophies also talk about the same being in company with family, friends, in an organization, working somewhere, buying, selling, and so on. That is living in company and then being in solitude, keeping away from society. Traditional spiritual traditions also, spiritual systems also have talked about these two quite a lot. To mention in a passing manner, in the Bhagavad Gita, solitude is indirectly referred to as karma sannyas. One leaves everything and goes to solitude. Whereas the opposite, being engaged in work, being in company, being in touch with people, interacting, going places, etc., is called karma. Karma, sannyas, and karma. But I don't want to go into those technical words because then we are opening a Pandora's box. So many other things also arise. So let's continue using simple language without bringing the jargon of this ism or that ism. Using simple language, when is solitude helpful? When is solitude harmful? The bright side of solitude, which we already touched upon a little bit, is that for those of us who have a certain degree of understanding how simply interacting with people, simply earning and simply stockpiling, simply increasing our possessions, it seems to lead to more and more of misery. Going by the law of diminishing returns, when you and I first time buy a car, we may be excited. And after 5 years, we buy another car. Again, it may be exciting, maybe a better model. But then the third time, the fourth time, you change your car. The third time, you go for a new house. The third time, you go on a European or American tour, or a tour to the Gulf or to Singapore. After some time, you get fed up with it. So, a lot of parents, first time when they go to the United States, are so proud. They tell their children, they tell their neighbors, they tell their relatives, you know, my daughter has settled in Chicago and I'm going there. My son is in Tokyo. I'm going to spend 3 months there. Ha ha, what an excitement. After some years, even if the children call them, Papa, Mummy, come, and they say, Beta, now we don't want to come anymore. You try to come. We are happy in Hyderabad, we are happy in Chennai, and so on. That's called the law of diminishing returns. What gave to some person great excitement at some point later on loses all its charm. So, those who have, in a manner of saying, have seen the limitations of partying, of meeting people, of inviting people to our home, of celebrating birthday and this day and that day. Those who have seen the sad limitations of this kind of extroverted life want solitude. They not only want in their quiet hours, they don't have to go to Himalayas, they don't have to go to some special place, wherever they are, to go for a morning walk all alone, to spend 10 days in one of the Krishnamurti centers, quietly enjoying the beauty of nature in those spacious campuses. When someone's mind is ready, that kind of solitude can be very beneficial. You may ask, in what way can it be beneficial? It is beneficial because the person in question is able to find some space between thoughts and himself. In a manner of saying, we don't mean space literally. What is meant is he is able to observe thoughts. He is able to observe his emotions. A bad memory rises in his mind. He is able to look at that memory and learn from it. And that too, as you and I have dwelt on this, the art of observing without resisting, without indulging, without analyzing, watching those memories, those unpleasant memories of certain things that happened, let us say, in 2014. And during your morning walk in Rajghat Education Center, you go by the K Trail. By the time you are almost at the end of it, a pleasant memory of 2009 comes to you. And there also, rather than getting carried away by that memory, if you are able to look at that thought and without any bias, in that watching itself, there is a certain learning. Therefore, solitude can be the launch pad of insights. Solitude can be the source of wonderful learning about one's self, and so on. In contrast, If somebody actually hasn't sorted out a whole lot of memories, that has not really, understood well the limitations of an outgoing life. If that person is left in solitude at a place where there is hardly anybody else, the whole place is quiet, you only listen to the chirping of birds, and at some parts of the campus, you watch a river flowing, in its own quiet. The person who is not ready for all this will begin to curse himself. Am I not wasting my time here? During these 10 days, I could have earned some more money. I could have taken some of my projects ahead by some distance, etc. Very interesting. It's in the mind. If a mind can rightly look at the quietude, the place, the setting, the atmosphere where nobody is interrupting you with a question, with a thought, with a proposal, with some idea, you are left to yourself. If somebody is able to something handle it in a mature way, solitude is a great blessing. Therefore, even in traditional works, it is said, in solitude, you can actually rise inwardly. Without quoting the Sanskrit, let me say, in a Vedanta work called Viveka Chudamani, it is explicitly said, the word used is Ekanta Stitihi. Ekanta Stitihi Indriyoparamane Hetuhu. That's how it begins, if some of you want to go to the original and check. When you are in solitude, that can facilitate a greater degree of restraint of sense organs, says the Vedanta tradition. Not for all, really. Those who are not ready for solitude, leave them in a solitary place where you don't get even coffee or tea, only green tea is served, let us say. They go berserk. They will fret and fume. They will grab the earliest opportunity to go to the town nearby and enjoy samosas and paratha and so on. But those who actually are ready, the whole question, therefore, is to figure out who is ready for solitude and who is not ready. Those who are ready for solitude are able to handle certain urges that rise in them for some sense pleasure, for some kind of engagement in matters of the society. They are able to handle it. They are able to see through the thoughts rising, and thanks to their deft handling of those thoughts, the thoughts subside. Indriyas, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin, speech, hands, feet, and so on. As you know, in Indian philosophy, we talk about five Jnanendriya and five Karmendriya. Organs of perception, seeing, hearing, etc. Organs of action, speaking, lifting, walking, etc. So, they are both an asset and a danger to us. Because of the restlessness of these organs of perception and action, you and I, many a time, end up saying things that should not have been said, doing things that should not have been done, and then the result is regrets, guilt, shame, or sometimes an urge to justify whatever we did or said, and life becomes such a psychological mess. But when there is a certain maturity already, even as thoughts arise, even as a certain urge arises to enjoy, to engage, the person in question can handle those urges through gentle observation, and the result is those urges subside. or they are hanging in there without getting stronger, without toppling this person, without throwing this person off balance. That's the tricky point. That is the criterion. So solitude can help, as Viveka Chudamani would say, in Indriya Nigra. And that certain shloka says that once Indriyas are brought under a certain restraint through mature observation, mature management of this, the mind becomes more and more quiet. And when the mind is quiet, one is able to go further inward. One is able to see oneself in a certain new light. And as one sees oneself in new light, otherwise, the mind of you and me is so much burdened with lots of judgments. Oh, I am good here, I am bad there, I succeeded over there, how nice it was, and I failed over here, and how terrible it is. Oh, I made those mistakes in life, but at certain places I was so smart. Hundreds of judgments, some of them making a very negative picture of our own, a self image which is not all that pleasant, and some others creating a favorable picture of ours. In the process, there is so much of mental chatter, there is so much of mental noise. In contrast, given the opportunity to be in solitude, a person can first arrive at relatively quiet senses, leading to a relatively quiet mind, and then leading to, thanks to no chatter or no noise in the mind, a new perception of oneself. The question, who am I, can get an entirely new answer when we reach those deeper levels of self perception. We can come to see that any opinion that we have about ourselves, I am good, I am bad, I am meritorious, I am a sinner, these are all opinions that we have. Now, we can see that these opinions are rubbish. These opinions actually don't have much meaning at all. At the most, they are contextual. Therefore, without labeling ourselves either as good people or as bad people, who asked you? Who asked you your opinion? Your own mental noise goes on throwing labels in the air. One moment you think there is no such good person in the neighborhood as I am. I am the noblest person because I attend the dialogues every Thursday. I am a more advanced spiritual person. One moment our mind compliments us, and on another moment our mind says, "You are the biggest hypocrite around in this so neighborhood. All are normal, you are abnormal," and so on. What to believe, which you accept, then we get tired. But when there is the mature use of solitude, opportunities that we get to be by ourselves, the opposite happens. One by one, all these labels fall off. Structures of thought fall off. Like a house of cards, all of them fall down. And there is a new perception which is indescribable. I am. You don't add I am good or I am bad. You don't add I am successful in life. Nor do you say I am a failure or anything in between. Where is the need? I guess there was one Dr. Chowdhury. He was a cardiologist in Chennai. Originally, he was from Orissa. He wrote a book of jokes, and I am yet to verify whether that really happened. He cracks a joke in that. It's a book of jokes, but there was an interesting piece on J. Krishnamurti. I believe somebody came running to J. Krishnamurti and said, "What do you think of Osho?" And Krishnamurti's answer was, "I don't think of Osho." Where is the need for you and me to have an opinion on Osho or Maharshi Mahesh Yogi or Vivekananda or Chinmayananda or, or this guru or that saint or this film actor or that athlete? Where is the need basically for you and me to have an opinion on Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi? But this mad society which you and I only have created makes us believe that we must be having an opinion about everything. In solitude, we see not only the questionable nature of images, opinions, judgments, evaluations, but also see that there is no need for us to carry the burden of opinions. Why can't you go for half an hour of walk and just be in touch with what that morning has to offer? Winter is setting in. Already it is quite a bit of winter in some parts of our country. Other day, some of us were at a place outside Bangalore. In morning, there was so much of fog. I had seen such fog in North India, Varanasi, and so on. But I was surprised there was some fog around Bengaluru. So, what prevents us from perceiving that fog, perceiving the cold as well as a little warmth, maybe a bit later? Why are we into thoughts, images, opinions? Generally, we don't ask ourselves this question at all. So, solitude, when we are ready for it, can expose the unnecessary nature, the falsity, the vanity, etc., of thoughts. By seeing their falsity, they subside, not by deciding not to have thoughts. I'm not going to have any thought next 5 minutes. Like that, if we tighten our muscles, what's going to happen? Even if you succeed in not having thoughts for a couple of minutes, after that you burst out and you have more thoughts than ever. Whereas if there is a gentle observation of how many of our thoughts, some of them being desires, ambition, great plans for self projection, self gratification, they are vain, they are meaningless. When we see it, there comes about an inner silence. Lastly, to say a couple of things about the dark side of solitude, when somebody is not ready for it, it can cause more agitations. It can cause more of inner conflict. When somebody is not ready really to drive a car at high speed, he meets with accident. If he just says, "Oh, my classmate is driving at 70 miles per hour, 80 miles per hour, come what may, I'm also going to increase, press the accelerator," you will meet with accident. Don't just imitate your friend, whether it's driving or swimming or any other physical or mental exercise. If you haven't developed that skill, the same activity where another person could be very happy doing it and people admire him, you could be breaking your bones. Solitude is like that. When somebody does not have the ability to watch, notice thoughts, the ability to question oneself, somebody does not, he doesn't even have an idea what it is, what this observation, what this watching is, and so on, what introspection is. Everywhere somebody has, let us say, half baked ideas. Everywhere somebody turns all of these into something willpower based exercises. then solitude will actually harm him in several ways. One is, as I already said, he may get more and more restless and agitated. And probably a greater danger is in solitude, somebody by willpower quietens his mind. Maybe by some breathing technique, maybe by concentrating on something. Mind becomes quiet and he gets a deceptive sense of having reached somewhere. Wow, I am now very close to enlightenment or some stupid conclusion, which, without his knowing what is happening, has actually strengthened the self. Therefore, quite possibly, someone who is not mature enough could lead himself to a delusion of some sort. He may imagine that he is above other people. He may come back and claim before his friends, before his company, his circle of contacts, I was in the Himalayas and I experienced one morning, one afternoon sitting by Ganga. I found the world in me and I am in the world and birds were in me and I was in the birds and something he read in some book. He may claim he had some extraordinary experience. And talking like that, unfortunately, he might think of himself as a superior human being. Holier than thou attitude might creep into him. Therefore, solitude is not for all, nor do we say that we must be judgmental about people. One must be honest to oneself. In some sense, solitude is for all, but in another sense, the ground reality is many are unable to handle it. Many are unable to hold it properly in their consciousness. Many are able to deal with a solitary place in a sensible manner. Potentially, yes, everyone should benefit from solitude. But actually, because of some erroneous perspective, a larger number, I would say majority of people can sort of inwardly dry up rather than blossoming, rather than blooming and bring out certain fragrance from them, they may, in the so called solitude, wither away, dry up. They may get hardened in their heart rather than becoming softer, becoming vulnerable, becoming open to new learning. Alas, the dark side of solitude is some people might become harder, rigid. They may have an attitude. You don't have to tell me. I know what is right. I know everything. I just came back from a special 21 days camp on the hilltop. Now I want to just teach all of you some kind of arrogance, not to mention other distortions that the psyche can go through. Somebody could feel frustrated. Somebody could feel really a sense of, I am not good for anything. My mind was not at all peace in those 21 days of some kind of meditation. I tried to do it, but I was more restless than before. And one could suffer from a greater amount of worthlessness. Therefore, I have, in a general, in a random manner, highlighted how solitude is a golden opportunity for an inner revolution, but nothing happens unless one has a certain healthy outlook, which can come from study, which can come from discussion, which to a large extent comes when life gives us hard knocks. and teaches us lessons, makes us softer even when we do not want to be softened. We want to get hardened. We want to roll up our sleeves and march into some situation of life, saying, I'm going to reform that place, and so on. We have some kind of egoism, but life gives us some bitter lessons sometimes. There too, when we are able to learn those lessons, then there is a certain new approach to solitude. Then solitude can help us blossom. So let me conclude saying solitude has the ability to make us shrink, and it has the ability to make us expand. Do we expand or do we shrink? Depends on a certain preparedness. That's what you and I need to especially examine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Harshad Parekh, sir, would you please add few words to this? Harshad Parekh, sir.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to hear my voice?
Yeah, we are able to hear.
Okay, thank you, Swamiji. You are very fluent and the words are coming so easily to you, and you are saying many beautiful things and with a sense of humor. And you mentioned about the places like Sayadri or Rishi Valley, KFI retreats. Many people, not many people come. I would say that very few people love to be in solitude because it is frightening for many people in the world that when they are alone, they feel very lonely. They need to do something, talk with somebody, to, trying to escape from loneliness, but remain lonely. I remember some people come to Sayadri school and they enjoy very nice place, and there is so much freedom to walk on the campus and observe the beauty of nature, or they can read a book of Krishnamurti, or they can watch audio and video, and if they want to discuss with some people, the person in charge, so they have the opportunity to sit one to one during this retreat, and some people benefit very much. But I remember one day we had a retreat, organized retreat, and on the first day, there was one person who had come from Pune, and he was a lawyer. And on the first day, within 10 minutes, he fainted. He found it, the whole atmosphere, quietness, seriousness was very frightening, and he had not experienced this kind of environment where everybody is very seriously observing their own mind. So people who are not ready, as Swamiji said, it could be solitude or being alone in a place like a beautiful natural place. It could be very frightening. They begin to feel very lonely also because they are born in big cities and they have lived with entertainment and going to restaurant or parties. So for such people who are not prepared, when they come to a retreat like this, they find it very lonely and tiring, frightening. But people who are prepared, who enjoy nature, who enjoy walking alone, who enjoy meeting people one to one. So, and who don't like so much to talk, discuss. Such people, I think they are very much benefited by the environment which we have in KFI places. But I see that on most of the days of the week, these rooms are there, beautiful facilities, but they are remaining empty. Very few people come who are very serious. And those people who come, many of them, they love. So solitude is a blessing when the body and the mind are in a very healthy condition. Solitude can be a state of creativity, love, beauty, something new, something new opens up new area in the brain for people who love solitude. But when the body and mind are not healthy, then this kind of solitude, it can be a curse instead of a blessing, and it may lead to loneliness and boredom. That solitary confinement is considered to be the greatest punishment for, because people, they can't be alone and not talking with anybody. But that kind of solitary confinement, people go for this vipassana meditation, where people are supposed to be alone for 10 days, not to talk with anybody, no mobile, nothing. And people who are ready for that, they have the opportunity to go for vipassana meditation. And many people are benefited from such meditation. A solitary confinement, like when people like Jawaharlal Nehru or Gandhiji or Arvindo, when they were in the jail, they used their time in a very creative way, and they wrote books, and Arvindo got an insight into his future of his life. And then he left politics, Arbindo, and went to Pondicherry and started ashram and went very deep into religion and philosophy. So solitude can be a blessing for few people who are who enjoy being alone and who enjoy looking at their own mind. Because generally, very few people like to look at their own mind, how thoughts are arising, and wonder about what is behind it. So, such people who love to be alone and to look inward, they can enjoy being alone any place, even in their city, in their room. If they are alone, they feel relaxed. And such people, when they have to go to a big party, marriage, they don't feel very happy. Like I'm like that. I avoid marriage party and big party where there are too many people, because by nature I love aloneness, and everything comes out very beautiful when I am alone. But if I have to talk for a long period, and then I feel tired, because I am not a very talkative person. I enjoy looking at nature. I looking at expression on the faces of people, but without chattering mind, just looking. So people who are artistic like that, they may enjoy the places aloneness, and they can do wonderful work of creativity. Krishnamurti had a habit of going alone for walks in the forest, and he was observing everything, every creature, animal, trees, whatever cities, wherever he was, his mind was alone. And alone means all in oneness. When the mind is not chattering, everything looks so fresh, so new. So Krishnamurti's philosophy, I think it comes because of his habit of being alone and observing his own mind. And from that, he learned actually that how thought creates the thinker. That means the sense of I or me. It comes from thought. And once this sense of I or me comes, then there is a duality, and you and loneliness and all the problems are arise because when we have a strong sense of I or me. Without that, life is wonderful. Without this sense of me arising, comparing with others, and having ambition and all that. So solitude can be a state of freedom, unity, but it is a curse for people who are used to the noise of music or city or restaurants and public life. So such people, when they have to be alone, and it would be very, very difficult. And for most people, this happens when they become very old and their wife or children have gone away or wife has died. And then they don't know how to be alone. And so the mind chatters a lot and thinks about the past and not able to enjoy the present. So many times I feel that when we are young, we must learn to be alone and to be happy. And we can really create something out of that aloneness or being uh, away from everything and just looking, observing. So I have said enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dinesh, you can say.
Are you able to hear my voice?
We are able to listen.
First
No
of all,
problem.
I would like to say that Swamiji has given full justice to the subject and nothing much is left. But I would like to take opportunity and the opportunity to discuss how JK has used this word. He has used this word in a very different manner, and that I would like to discuss. Swamiji has given the references of the tradition today, and that is good. And I am going to give the references of JK today. So let us start as usual. What is the dictionary meaning? Dictionary meaning says that the state of being alone, especially when you find this pleasant. Swamiji has also touched this point, when you find it displeasant. Solitude may imply a condition of being apart from all human beings, far off from society, or being cut off by wish or circumstances from one's usual associates. So here also, what
No voice coming.
Not able to listen you.
Yeah, right.
Please check.
sorry, there was a call in between. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So third point is solitude. Solitude effects can be positive or negative, as mentioned by the Swamiji. Depending on the situation, short-term solitude is often valued as a time when one may work, think, or rest without disturbance. In it, I am by myself, but together with myself. This is what dictionary says. But dictionary is talking only about the outer solitude, whereas JK has used this word in a very varied ways. So that okay, we will see that how he has used that word, and it is very interesting. JK has used this word very subtly and delicately. In my views, he has used the word in a sense in between isolation and aloneness. Means he has used the band right from the isolation to aloneness. Aloneness here used in between is aloneness here word is used in between highest sense of aloneness when you are completely alone, and aloneness in which you feel uh, aloneness of self and others, but also strange oneness with the others. So aloneness also he has bifurcated total aloneness when you are totally alone, and other is other aloneness, which is you are alone also, you are aware of the circumstances also, and you feel a strange feeling, you get a strange feeling, which we will discuss later on. So basically JK has used aloneness also in a different way, and different levels he has mentioned. Second point, solitude, he said, JK said, solitude reveals you loneliness, your vanity, your sense of depression. When you have finished with solitude, there is the other aloneness, which is not a conclusion or a belief. It is not propaganda telling you what it means to look. Aloneness is not pushing you in any direction. So when man is not fully prepared, but somewhat prepared, then this solitude gives shows him his inner lack or inner loneliness. The feeling of loneliness emerges from inside, and tells him that these are the points on which he has to work. Next, he says, apparently you seem to be incapable of standing alone. That word alone means all one, which Harshad Parekh sir has also said. When you are really alone, not contaminated, when you are really free, you are the whole human entity, the human world. But we are frightened to be alone. We always want to be with somebody or with an idea or an image. To be alone is not solitude. Here he says, to be alone is not solitude. Solitude has its own beauty. To walk along in the woods, alone along the river, not hand in hand with somebody or other, but alone in solitude, which is different from aloneness. If you are walking by yourself, you are watching the sky, the trees, the birds, the flowers, and all the beauty of the earth, and also perhaps you are watching yourself, not having a dialogue with yourself, not carrying your burdens with you. You have left those behind. So he has used solitude in this way also, which is in between. Then he has used the solitude was of the mountains and the beauty of the red earth. In deep solitude, in strange ways, one was related to them. In deep solitude, in strange ways, one was related to them. In fact, relationship, space between you and them didn't exist. In that relationship, space between you and them didn't exist. Neither intellectual nor emotional conviction that brought this about but simply it was so. Conviction that brought this about, but simply it was so. So here he has used solitude in this way. Then what he says further? He has discussed the case of outer and inner solitude. Outerly, one may not mind being alone, but from inner solitude, one turn away. To be alone in the highest sense is essential. To be alone in the highest sense is alone. But the aloneness of withdrawal gives a sense of power, of strength, of vulnerability. Such aloneness is isolation. It is an escape, a refuge. One knows worth of outer solitude. So it is in relationship to all.
Your voice not coming.
Voice.
Sorry, in between there was a call. Now voice
Yeah.
is coming.
Yeah, now coming. Yeah.
Okay. Such aloneness is isolation. It is an escape, a refuge. One knows worth of outer solitude. So it is in relationship to all this one measures or approach inner solitude. One knows what has been. One knows what has been, but one doesn't know what is. The known looking at the unknown.
No
Not
voice is
coming your
coming.
voice.
No voice is coming. So many
Hmm.
disturbances with you. What is the problem? No voice is coming. No voice is coming.
No, there is no disturbance. Are you able to listen to me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. The known looking at the unknown brings about fear. It is this activity that causes fear. Just see that thought cannot operate upon the unknown, upon what is behind the term inner solitude. Only then what is unfold itself, and it is inexhaustible. One should meditate in solitude. One should meditate in solitude. It must be solitude. You must be completely alone, not following a system, a method, repeating words, or pursuing a thought, or shaping the thought according to your desire. This solitude comes when mind is freed from thought. Only in the immensity of the present, this aloneness comes. I do not know if you ever have meditated, if you have ever been alone by yourself, far away from everything, from every person, from every thought and pursuit. If you have ever been alone, not isolated, not withdrawn into some fanciful dream or vision, but far away, so that in yourself there is nothing recognizable, nothing that you touch by thought or feeling, so far away in this full solitude, the very silence becomes the only flower, the only light, and the timeless quality that is not measurable by thought. Only in such meditation, love has its being, and freedom implies complete solitude. So he has used this word, if we can say, if I should conclude, or he has used the word in a band sort of thing, in which solitude has right from the isolation, where there is always a division. In isolation, there is always division. Your ego knows. Ego is in has a ego has separateness, and on the other hand, aloneness. He has used up to the highest sense of aloneness, where there is ego, because ego says I exist. This is what my views are. But in between, there are still these states of being. When we say states of being means there is experiencing, but when we say uh, beingness, when we say beingness means no states of being. This is what my views are. So right now I want to submit this book. Thank you.
Thank you, Waghmare. Chidanandji, would you please like to say something about at this juncture, as you have to leave?
Certainly.
Hmm.
Yes, we really appreciate Dinesh ji is collecting so many relevant points from Krishna ji's precious literature. And what we draw from the submissions of both Harshad ji and Dinesh ji is they too uh, appreciate the value of solitude, and they have made important clarifications. One of the things that Dinesh ji said is, I liked it, that quoting from Krishna ji, I guess, he said, it's not only longing to be with a person or persons, even when we have a dependence on being with an idea, with an ideal, with an image, with an imagined, picture, then also we are running away from ourselves. And solitude is to be able to stand on our own without dependence on anything physical or mentally created too. And I remember Krishnaji in his writings at many places talks about the high tide and low tide in rivers and in oceans. So when there is the river merging with the ocean, many rivers merging with the ocean, the level of the sea slightly rises. And when the rivers are withdrawing, the level of the ocean goes down. Rivers are in high tide then. We know this high tide and low tide. Giving that analogy, he talks of how our life is, whether we like it or not. Our life involves meeting people, life involves getting in relationships. And Krishnaji has always called relationships, a great mirror. It's an opportunity to know the operation of the self. So we get into relationship, and then there are times when we withdraw from relationships, not withdraw with some kind of motive, but out of certain either circumstances or we just want to have our space. Because sometimes when you say, I withdrew from that relationship, it implies I was very sore with that person. I said, enough, I don't want to be in this relationship. I'm not meaning that. You withdraw from engagement, you go for your own inner space. So, like the high tide and the low tide, where there is, let us say, water moving into the ocean or getting back to the river, you to get into contacts, relationships, and you then get back to a certain quietude, being with yourself. So, in numerous examples and in numerous ways, the dual nature of our real life has been shown, and any artificiality that we may impose upon the reality of life can only be counterproductive. On one hand, we need to exercise our discrimination, our discretion, but on the other, it should not lead to a suppression. We cannot impose on ourselves solitude, nor can we impose ourselves on people, and or impose, make people come to our life through some demand and command. Who will listen to us? Therefore, there has to be, it seems to me, a greater and greater awareness of the natural flow of life. And we need to blend our way of living with the natural flow. We need to give others their space when they need. We need to have our space when we need. But all that has to happen with some sensitivity to both others and to ourselves. The problem, let me say a last point, is we, even the very learned ones, even those of us who can talk on any topic for hours, actually have a lot of mechanicalness in our life. Actually, in real life, we are so mechanical. And what makes us mechanical is certain rigid notions. The rigid notions. This is not possible. Oh, I won't do it. Wait a minute, question again. You perhaps can do what you thought you could not do, and somewhere else you perhaps should not do what you are intending to do. Therefore, a life of constant examination, examine the surroundings, examine yourself, then I guess a certain nice blend between our flow and the natural flow of things around us can take place. This is my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pradeep sir, please.
Yes, sir.
Please unmute.
I'm audible, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
audible.
Yes. Swamiji used a very nice word, mind-boggling. Solitude is a very mind-boggling word. What makes it mind-boggling? Definitely, it is subjectivity. You see, it is highly subjective, and subjectivity is based on conditioning. You see, these things are highly related. He talked about psychological space and physical space, but to me, they are highly related. Both of this. You cannot say that it is coming from physical or it is come from this way or that way. Highly related. In fact, they are more related to psychologically to physical things. That is very important. Then aloneness and loneliness is also is quite mixed up stuff. Then we talk bright and dark side of the one. We are talking about the bright and dark side of the one. We know that that oneness is there. Still, maybe we carry a biological prism in us that divides one into many. So every time when we bring topics that has both the views, and both views means polarities, or you may say duality, the same one becomes many. Factually, we live in gray, made up of infinite combinations of black and white. So we can hardly stand in two polarities. You see, purely. We are guided by our highly convoluted gray matter. Gray matter. I'll not talk about gray market, but we live a gray life. There is no pinpointing polarity in this. The moment we bring a word with at least two known and infinite number of unknown meanings, we are introducing movement in the mind, all of us. You can see subjectivity when we all are expressing our views. In last when this word solitude comes, the one thing that I've never forgotten is that poem by that poetry, Wordsworth, where I'll just bear with me, when he uses so beautifully this word solitude, for often on couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So daffodils, he has described everything in a particular mood, how solitude comes in from, and he is talking so beautifully about the relationship of solitude and the nature. This is one paragraph, of course, it's a big poem. So people may not be able to enter. I'm using may because subjective case studies can be thousands that people, we are talking about others most of the times, that this happened, this may happen, that may happen. But inward eye, when he's saying, and I for one feels it inward, what is that inward eye, and enjoyed this solitude. Harshad also talked about it with nature, aloneness. So actually solitude is a very, very desirable, good thing. Why it becomes bad for some, I don't know, that cannot be called as solitude for me. Because there's a subjectivity and so many desires and so many things happening around, you are not able to cope up with that. So solitude per se I don't think solitude has some dark side also. This is my personal view. This is all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, friends. taken enough time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep ji. Prasad sir, please. Prasad sir.
Sir, I could. The topic is, of course, very interesting. All of us enjoy solitude. Very few people who do not enjoy solitude, at least at certain points in their, at certain periods in their life. I mean, I related, I could respond very positively to what Harshad ji said. That is, solitude doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to Himalayas or to some distant place or some forest or anything like that, or even to Krishnaji's centers like Uttarkashi and all that. You can have solitude in your own house. There is benediction where you stay. You don't have to necessarily undergo all the discomfort of railway reservations, hotel reservations, and all that, and go to distant places. You can have benediction right in your own house. That is solitude. You can have solitude even when the house is full of your family members and all that. And as Swamiji said, I think somebody said, you can have solitude. Solitude means basically your mind is blank. It is not full of chattering thoughts and all that. The advantage of solitude is, because we are talking of both the positive and the negative sides of solitude, the advantage of solitude is that you can pay attention to so many things in your environment. I go for swimming. When you go for swimming, when you go alone, you can observe the waves in the river and the trees on the banks of the river. You can observe all that. If you are the disadvantage, it is basically like pleasures of company, pleasures of solitude. In company has some pleasures. You get information. You can exchange jokes, etc. If you are in company. Same thing. If you are in solitude, if you are alone, you can observe, you can go into yourself. Because when you are in company, there is not much possibility or less possibility of going into yourself. There also you can observe. In company also you can observe yourself. You can see your relationship with others. That is possible only in company. Actually, we have to use our words very carefully. There is nothing like it is possible only there. Possibilities are everywhere. You can observe yourself even when you are in company or in solitude. Broadly speaking, it is like that. There is urban life, there is a rural life. There is a life in the West, there is a life in the East. Both have their own advantages and pleasures. Similarly, solitude has its own advantages and pleasures, and company of other people has its own pleasures. But basically, in solitude, you can have the broad design of your life. What your life has been, what it is now, what will be tomorrow. The entire spectrum of the psychological time. All that you can feel it as you can feel it on that inward eye, which Pradeepji has quoted from Wordsworth. That inward eye, you can, it is like a screen. On that screen, when you recline on your bed, and there are so many phrases like that, when to the sessions of sweet silent thought, I summon remembrance of things past, something like that. All that is possible in solitude only. And in solitude, you can go into the depths of yourself. You can see the workings of the observer in you. The me, how it works. I will take a minute and relate what I have been through recently. I got irritated mostly because of biological reasons. I got irritated with the three of my friends, and those three are my best friends or my helpers and all that. I could see what is happening with me. I am becoming irritable. I am becoming impatient. I am not realizing the value of they are adding to my life. So things like that. Then immediately I set about rectifying the situation. I gave a phone call. I paid a compliment to one, made a phone call to another, like that. And I became bright. Things became bright. That is possible only with observation of myself in solitude. If I had been in a big company, like a marriage festival, I would not have been, that sensitivity would not have been possible. And when Harshadji was talking, I could see my similarities with him. We seem to be extroverts. We are quite happy living our own lives alone. And with a book in hand, you can spend your afternoon in the winter season outside, like that. So many pleasures, and very cheap. They come very cheap. You don't have to spend much money for that. And there are pleasures of drinks and pleasures of non-drinks. It depends on your age also, your body condition and things like that. These days, I am realizing the significance of what K says. You must have a sensitive body along with sensitive mind. You cannot have a sensitive mind without a sensitive body. Yeah. And if you want a sensitive body, you have to have good habits. And nobody can say drink is a very good habit. Or like smoking. These habits destroy the sensitivity of your body. And these things you can tell yourself, and nobody learns from the others. You learn from these hard facts from your own life. And these hard facts you learn when you are, it is like chewing the cud, the cattle chew the cud. So we also chew the cud of our own experiences, our own thoughts and all that. And this is possible in solitude. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Harshad sir. Harshad Parekh
Yeah,
sir, please.
yeah. Yes, what I want to say something about the root meaning of the word alone. It means all in one. That means you don't feel that you are isolated, you are separated from others. You don't have that feeling. That is the true aloneness. And that is what Krishna ji said. It is completely opposite aloneness from isolation. Isolation means you are cut off from the world. You feel very lonely. You feel very unhappy. But in aloneness, you are related with everything. And so you are very happy in aloneness. So uh, sometime it may happen that you may be in the company of many people and still you may feel lonely if you are not able to relate well with people. And when you are alone, you may feel related with many people because it depends on the quality of the mind. If the quality of the mind is very healthy, happy, you don't need to meet many people. You feel happy to just look, whether you look at a tree or look at an animal, look at a people, and watch the expression on their face, you feel related. You learn much more non-verbally when you are alone and not even chattering your mind. Because Krishna ji also says, if your mind, you are alone physically, but if your mind is chattering, then you are not alone. So the true aloneness is when you are your mind is not chattering. And then you may be with people, but you don't feel lonely. And you may be alone and you don't feel lonely. So I think it has to do with the state of the mind most. But of course, the state of the mind also depends on the state of the body, because if the body is not healthy, sometimes it affects the mind, and the mind affects the body. So both healthy body and healthy mind, then one can be alone and be happy without much talking and just looking, observing, learning about oneself. So that is what these Krishnamurti centers are for such people who can be healthy body, healthy mind, and learning. Of course, we can learn from the books, but that is the bookish learning. Real learning is when we are living what we are learning. So it has to express itself in our daily life of relationship. And if there are lots of conflicts with people around, even within the family, with friends, it means that you are lonely, you are isolated, though you may have many friends. But if your relationship is good, even if you have few friends, you feel very happy. Even whether you meet them or you don't meet them. One of my best friend I met after 36 years, and I felt very happy. And even when I was away from the friend, I was happy. So the distance doesn't matter when the mind is healthy. Okay, so this topic of relationship is a very good because we have physical relationship, mental relationship, and there is a relationship which goes beyond physical and mental. And that is what Krishna ji is saying, that when we have images about people, we have no relationship. When we meet a person and we remember the past impressions, and then we look at that person, whether it is a wife or a friend, there is no relationship because it is a relationship of images only. So this is something very new. What Krishnaji is talking about is having a relationship without having images, looking fresh every time. Whether you look at a tree or a human being, how do you look? What is the state of the mind? Everything comes on that. Okay, I have said enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak. Modak, please end it as it is already 7:30. With this note, we end it.